what are the odds this fusion ends up in your vault? That's what you should be asking yourself every time you have a fusion. The odds are much lower on this champion than any other champion I've seen so far this year. We're going to dive into it. I know this is going to be a spicy take for sure. I mean, listen, everyone knows he's good, but just how good is this guy? Let's find out. What up, team? It's your boy MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, talking about Ukko, whatever his name is. Ukko. Legendary, Force Affinity, we need Force Affinity. Skinwalker, we needed Skinwalkers. Thankfully, there's a good one. I'm sure tons of players have accessories for this, and they're like, who do I use this on? Sure, there's a few good ones here and there. Hakorn Smash, he's okay. The Longbeard, he's pretty good too. I'm sure I'm missing people, but I'm on the fly here. So Mighty, Ukko, we're just gonna call him Ukko sounds kind of gross. So listen, I think he's better than Helicath. Now, there's a reasoning for that, and I don't want to get too much into that. I think it's going to be self-explanatory as I'm going through this. So, like I said, let me just go over what this guy does here and kind of explain my reasoning and why I think he's kind of like a must-have for everybody that can get a fusion. I'm not saying if you're free to play, break that for this guy. He's good. Is he going to be worth it if you get him? Yeah, but I'm not here to entice anyone to spend money. That's not me. We'll let the other YouTubers do that. So we have an A1 here, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 50% attack down debuff for 2 turns. When booked, the percentage is probably going to go up. How do I know that? Because if you look at all the other A1 ability champions, it's like that, right? So we have Tyrell, we have all of these other champions, and this is an AoE on top of things. So the fact that it's starting out 50% baseline, whether we get 60, 65, 75, that's huge all in itself. So that already increases the viability for anyone early game, mid game, check. Attack down so hard, it's usually on a 3-turn cooldown, and that's not even it. So next thing, Ukko's Fury, 4-turn cooldown, attacking all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance to remove 2 random buffs from the target. Now, of course, this is going to get booked to, based on the history of fusions, 3-turn cooldown and 100% chance. It's just the way it always is. And places block buffs and decrease accuracy, the strong one, of course. He's legendary for 2 turns on targets that have no buffs after the attack. So decrease accuracy, listen, you could be 50-50 on this buff, but it is what it is. Sometimes, whether you're progressing through Dragon, Ice Golem, some of the debuffs can be wipe worthy, right? If you get a debuff on you and you get crit, anything like that, it could end up being a wipe here. So the fact that you can book this guy to 100% and it applies that decreased accuracy, I don't have to explain how good block buffs is. That's in a separate category. But if you can resist things without having to build resist, what more could you want, right? Moving on to the A3, revives all dead allies with 40% HP. So we have an AoE revive here, 6-turn cooldown. Nothing's on a 6-turn cooldown fully booked in this game. It's going to go to 3 or 4, probably 4. So then places block damage on them for 1 turn. So once they're revived and they're finally getting smart, thank you Plarium, once you're revived, champions are so vulnerable. Ally protection doesn't cut it. What else do they do? They give them 50% increased defense. It doesn't cut it. They're still going to get 1 shot by whatever happens next. They have no turn meter. It's just, and if they have high turn meter, they're burning through their survivability buff. So it's just not good. This gives them that freedom to relax. Your other teams can regenerate their cooldowns, block damage, they're not taking any damage, and it's just the smart way to go. Also places 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. And another great thing they did, I'm so glad they did this, Arbiter has her issues as far as her revive, but her issues are more because it's just a small turn meter boost. Now, if there are no dead allies, he will still put increased speed. So it's an increased speed buff no matter how you look at it. And yes, you can use it with a bad AI and then your champion can die and it's not on cooldown. That's fine. I would rather have that than have an ability that's kind of a waste until your team has a death, because let's face it, outside of progression, if you're trying to farm something, now you have a second use for this guy. He's not just dependent on someone in your team dying, having that failsafe, he has added value in his kit without a champion dying, which is brilliant by them. I don't know why it took them so long to do this, but it is what it is. Next, we have a really cool passive. I like this a lot. 50% chance of stealing. Listen, it's never going to be 100, but I know 50 is 50-50, but everything in this game's RNG. 50% chance of stealing one random buff from an enemy each time they receive a buff. Each time. No cooldown scene. So you have a 50-50 chance of stealing a buff every time an enemy receives a buff. Any stolen buffs become protected. What? That means, I mean, you guys know what, I'm not going to say what that means, but you guys know what protected means. That's strong. So on top of that, we have an aura, increases ally speed in all battles by 20. If you don't have a speed aura in the early game, I mean, I don't have to tell you how strong speed is pretty much everywhere. I've made tons of videos saying the key to this game is speed. If you have good speed on champions, of course you need other stats, HP, defense, crit rate, whatever it is. For that specific champion, speed is king. Speed has been king forever. That's how you clear content in this game. If you're too slow, you're going to get lapped, you're going to get out damaged, and you're not going to be able to progress. But 200 is pretty much the golden rule for most content that isn't Doom Tower and pretty much any content higher than that. So what this guy does is he brings an awesome aura to you, and it applies everywhere. It's not just arena, just dungeon. So this is huge. Now, we're not even going to get into his base stats because they would have to be awful, absolutely awful, for this champion to lose any type of value. And of course, I've played with him on the test server, all of that, so I can't really say what he has, but this guy, like I already said, is going to be the best fusion in 2022. Now, I'll talk about Hellcat because I know there's going to be a billion comments saying, how can you say this guy's better? Because Hellcat is really, really good, much better than this guy in very specific areas, but it doesn't apply to all players by any means. There can be a use for this from what I've already seen and read from his kit for early game, end game, mid game, late game, no matter what. Hellcat, find me an end game player that is using Hellcat. I didn't fuse him. I have no need to fuse him. He's great for clan boss. What else is there? He's great for early game dungeons. Where else are you going to use him though? Right? You're not going to see him in arena unless it's bronze, and anyone's viable in bronze, so I hate using that as a point. Silver, he can be okay in silver too, I guess, but still, he's not an arena champion. However, this guy appeals to a much wider range of content. Just like Hellcat, he's viable in dungeon progression. Just like Hellcat, he's viable in campaign. This guy isn't going to be as good in clan boss as Hellcat, of course. He's still going to be viable. Increased speed, that means you could speed tune it, but it might be a pain. A much better attack down if you have some type of counter attack team and you can work in, or you just want to turn off the A3 ability, do it. Block buffs, decrease accuracy, and one of the most consistent attack downs in the game. And then he has a chance to steal the buff from the clan boss if the block buffs isn't applied. If he's an affinity clan boss, I mean 50-50 chance, but it is what it is. So you can use him in clan boss. He's not going to compare anywhere close to Hellcat. I mean, I don't even have to say that, but you can still use him there, especially if you're early game. If you're speed tuning normal, hard, even brutal teams, when you're progressing through brutal, you're probably making a mistake and wasting resources. Once you get to Nightmare, that's when you start speed tuning things, and this guy can slowly get phased out the same way Hellcat would get phased out, because endgame players are running Bat Eater, right? They're just running Bat Eater. Guess you can run Hellcat, but I'm not even gonna go. Everyone knows how good he is in the clan boss. Outside of that, where are you gonna use Hellcat? Arena, his passive makes him a crazy good RNG arena player. He's red affinity, and everyone and their mother has blue affinity champions in the arena. Some of the strongest champions in the game are blue affinity. Every starter is blue affinity. Having this guy is going to be huge for any player. Any player, doesn't matter. Unless you're like the top of the 0.1% platinum, and maybe he'll work his way into that. It's still being discussed after the kit was revealed. I know especially in my clan, players have been discussing the passive, how good this can be based on some of the meta champions at the moment having buffs. The fact that they can get stolen is pretty broken. Even though it's 50-50, if you can disrupt a team with a 50% chance, that's really good. So there's already use there that Helicath does not have. And now we get into Hydra. AoE attack down, block buffs decrease accuracy. The A1 and A2 alone is huge for the Hydra. Now, as far as Helicath and the Hydra, you can get away with that, but there's no argument I can see anyone making that's going to say Helicath is better than this guy for the Hydra. Revive, increase speed, block buffs, decrease accuracy, attack down. Come on, that's really hard to beat. And he can steal buffs that the mischief takes. Yes, it's a 50-50 chance, but it's still a higher chance than nothing. And you have increased speed in all battles. Compared to defense, defense may be a little bit better based on your account. Everyone's account is going to be different, but speed is usually the killer, like I said, in most content. And then we have Doom Tower. I would say they're on an even playing field. Helicath is really strong in the Doom Tower, and this guy will also be. And then we have the new dungeons coming out, which can't talk about. But I don't know, it's too early for me to, like I said, we can't really talk about it, but who's better, Helicath or this guy? So this guy wins, right? He's just better in more places than Helicath for the entirety of wherever you are in progression, right? Early game, mid game, late game, end game. He's just better overall in those sections where Helicath is really, really good at specific. So this really wasn't supposed to be a video about Helicath compared to this guy, but everyone's going to talk about it, especially with the claim saying he's the best in 2022. Now, there are other fusions that have been very good as well, but like I said, this guy is just too good overall. So, initial thoughts on this champion, even after I have tested him, but I'm not giving any information based on my testing. In this, he's a great champion. You can just read this and say, okay, this guy pumps. No matter where you are, think about your teams, think about your dungeon teams, look at his kit and say, is this going to be good for you? I would wager 99% of you are going to say yes. There are champions in the game that do similar things. There are a combination of champions that do exactly what he does. So you guys are going to be the 1% that may not need this champion. That's very important. Don't just say, okay, every content creator is saying this guy's god tier, the greatest fusion in the game, and just fuse him. That's no way to go about things. If you can fuse him, of course, go for him, but if you're picky with resources, which you should be because progression matters a lot in this game, and you have two champions, I mean, I can think of like 10 off the top of my head that can do what he does, maybe not as good, but combined synergy. Of course, one champion's better, but if you're already doing it with two, why change anything, right? So with that being said, let me know so far where you plan to use this guy, the mighty Ukko. I'm hyped that he's a skinwalker. I think it's about time they added someone like this to the game because I personally have tons of accessories that I'd love to use on a champion like this. So as always guys, if you enjoy this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.